Okay, you guys, let's talk charcoal. So I will say charcoal can be intimidating because it's messy, it gets everywhere, it is very dark. And I think some people think that we can't lift it or we can't erase it. So I'm hopefully going to teach you some things that will ease your fears. Maybe you're like totally into it and you're just like, let's get going. But yeah, so hopefully this will help in our charcoal drawing. So a couple things that I have supply wise is I have a couple different tissues here. The reason why we sort of blend with tissues a little bit more is because when we blend with our finger, we push the fibers of our charcoal into we push the charcoal into the fibers of our paper. Sorry about that. A little bit more with our finger. Plus there's oils on our finger, and when that gets on there, it's harder to erase. So we don't want that to happen. We want to be able to lift up that charcoal whenever we need to. So I have a couple different tissues here. I've got a handheld sharpener because I find that when we use the charcoal pencil, a handheld sharpener works a little bit better because you can control it. And then I've got a couple different brushes here, and because these are also good for blending, so you can use a tissue or you can use your brushes as well. I have an eraser, and then I have my compressed charcoal. So that's what this called, this block of charcoal is your compressed charcoal here, and that's what typically is going to get you really messy. So we're going to actually use that last. And then I also have a little bowl here to collect some of my charcoal dust, because you can use this for lighter values and blending as well. So that's why we have our paintbrushes on here. So the first thing that we are going to use is our pencil. And there's lots of different types of pencils, charcoal pencils, just like there's different types of regular pencils. So if we look here, it says 2B and it says medium. So this is going to tell us this is the medium part of the spectrum of our value scale for charcoal. So it's right in the middle, which is nice because then you can go darker, you can go lighter with it. You just want to hold it like a regular pencil and just use it like a pencil. So when we're shading with pencils, we don't necessarily want to shade like this, because then we go to when we go to like blend it or anything like that, like if you're using a tissue, which I like to wrap the tissue around my finger, then you can see the lines, right? So that's not good. We don't want that to happen. So same, just like when we're using a pencil, when we want to shade with charcoal, we're going to do nice little circular motions. So I'm not pressing very hard on my paper right now. So this is what like our 2B charcoal pencil, that's like the mid-tone of the 2B charcoal pencil. I'm not pressing too light, not pressing too hard, and that's what's on there. If we look at our regular pencil, it's a much darker, right? So this is also 2B. It's much darker in the fact, because it's charcoal. I can go a lot lighter with it. Now, when I go lighter, I'll hold back on my pencil because then I don't have a lot of pressure on it. And I can go lighter, almost as light as my 2B pencil. And then I can go pretty dark as well. So there's such a wide range with charcoal, which is so nice when we're working with those values and we want to get really lights and really darks. When you do it really dark, you can see that there's a lot of extra that comes off of it, I guess. And that's where you can come in and you can use that to your advantage. In some areas it may be good, in other areas you may not want this at all. But you can use it to your advantage and actually take your paintbrush and take those and use those to create different textures or to smooth things out. So this is another way to use those like leftover charcoal pieces. Now, if you don't want those on there, you can very gently blow them off, or but then you have to be aware that it's getting your desk a little dirty, or you can come and sort of like just tap it on into your bowl. Now, mine didn't really move anywhere because I had used it with my paintbrush. But all these little things, you can come in with a clean part of your eraser and just sort of erase them off here. And we can come back in and look at that. You can come back in because we were doing it so gently and it was so light, and erase. You can come and erase this as well. Just takes a little bit. You can see that there is a little bit of charcoal left though, right? Oh, see, my eraser was dirty, so that's that. So there is a little bit of charcoal left, but you can lift it, I mean, pretty drastically. If I come to this lighter area here, I can lift it almost all the way up because I hardly did anything. So you can lift it. It's really nice that you're able to do that, but you do have to recognize that the darker you go, like this dark, I don't think is gonna be able to erase very much. Oh, it's getting actually a lot lighter than I thought. The darker you go, the more substance you're gonna just have on your paper, which is the same for pencil. So it's not like that's any different. So yeah, so when we're shading, like if you're gonna take a circle, ooh, that was a wonky circle. If you're gonna take a circle, we're just shading it like we would normally. So little tiny circles, you know, going around our ball or our sphere, getting lighter as we go out. The cool thing about this is that you can leave that all blank, like you don't have to, and then you can come in, this is sort of a big brush for that, but then you can come in and you don't even have to get dirty, and it smooths things out for you. And then you can bring this into the middle. Probably need a little bit more in here so it's not such a drastic change. And you can come in and smooth it out, and it looks a lot smoother. And then when you use your brush, it always sort of gets a little bit outside the lines, so you can come in and just sort of clean that up a little bit. I really love the pencil because you can get these nice thin, you know, lines if needed, depending on what you're working on. So it's really nice in the fact that you're just using it like a normal pencil and then going from there. You know, like if you're doing maybe some hair or something. So it's really, really nice that way. I'm gonna do another circle because I wanna show you the blending. I'm just gonna do this with a tissue because I used the paintbrush on that. So just real quick, blending this out. It's not the best, but you guys will get the idea. As I'm getting to my light source, a little bit lighter in here. And some people really like the texture. Like I know that when I am working with pencil on paper, I like that texture. So I don't necessarily blend it out all the time. But when you're doing your tissue, I do find that wrapping it around your finger works a little bit better, because you have a little bit more control. It also picks up a lot of the leftover, right? Instead of having it on there. So you can see the difference though. So the tissue did take away a lot more than my paintbrush did. So I would just have to come in, because I do want this side to be darker here. I'd have to come in and make that darker and blend it out again. And I can blend it with my pencil, my finger and tissue first, and then come in with a paintbrush even. So there's so many different ways to do this. So you see, like, you have to be careful, but it's nice that it was just a little smudge because then it gets everywhere. Like if it were me doing this, I probably would take this and make this a little bit darker and either just leave it or come in with my paintbrush and blend it and see how that keeps it there. So 2 different ways. I like the way that this looks better than this. I like that this is a lot lighter. So if I were gonna do this, I would probably use both techniques depending on what I'm doing, so that I can get that dark and I can get that light. So it's really nice, but it's up to you on what you like to work with. I'm gonna just show you, before we get to the compressed charcoal, because it's so stinking messy that I just wanna keep that till the end. If you've gathered some dust here, you can come in and you can get this pretty dark, but it starts off and it's just so nice and light and airy. So that's what you can use for this. You can use a flat brush and come in and do some nice lines. And if it's a little bit littler, you know, it'll work really nicely. These brushes then can be used for paint, so you don't have to, I mean, look at that. It's just so nice and light. So this might be a way to get some of your lighter values on there, you know, and you can get some and then try to tap it off. And the lighter I press on my brush, the less that comes off. If I press really hard and I continue to layer, then it's gonna get pretty dark, right? So I can press really light and hardly get anything. So this is a technique that I would definitely use on my really light areas or any areas that need some really nice softness to it. Like this could be cool for like reminds me of Starry Night a little bit, and it'd be cool to do it in charcoal. Okay, so compressed charcoal, it automatically gets you messy right away, right? You're just touching it, and it's because it's all charcoal, it's not wrapped up in something. So when you do this, you just have to be aware of what you're doing. I would use this for larger areas to color in. If you had big areas, it's also nice because it does get really, I mean, it's pretty dark right off the bat. And I really love the that you can use the whole thing. So again, when you're doing this, you can use a tissue to blend it, right? And those lines sort of go away, right? And then this actually, because of how it's made, like it really lasts a long time. You can use a tissue to blend it, or you can use and it goes a lot quicker than the pencil, or you can use a paintbrush. I'm gonna use this one. When you use a paintbrush with this, you do get a lot of dust coming up because it's putting so much charcoal on the page at one time. And it's not really, like, I'm doing it super light and it's still getting in where when I did it with that, I was pressing a little bit, so it was getting more into the fibers of the paper, whereas this, I'm hardly pressing it and it's getting dark. So that means that that charcoal is all on the surface area, well, on the surface of the paper, and so then there's a lot more dust. That's where you're gonna get the dust from. So that's when you can take your stuff and sort of just tap it off. You do have to be aware then that it will create a trail. So it creates this trail here, and I can blow it off a little bit more or erase it. Okay, but you can see the difference in the two on how you could see more textural with the, just like up here, but it's definitely much more visible with the paintbrush, as when I used my tissue, then it wasn't as much. So let's talk about erasing with this. So I'm just gonna erase through like I did with that. So when we use this, it does erase really well. I mean, even like, and I've already smudged that in, so that does erase pretty well. Even on the darker areas, it erases really nicely like on this really dark area. So you can get it off quite a bit, just like with the pencil. If I were to maybe go through here, you can see that it totally lifts. So I know a lot of artists who will do something, and not that they do this all the time, but they'll do something, and if they want an area that's a little bit more white, like individual hairs on people's face or something like that, they'll come in with the edge of their eraser and come in and, you know, lift up this charcoal, and it looks just so cool and so natural. So that's definitely a way to do things. I have created a whole drawing where I've put different values down, like darks, lights, and mediums, and then I've come in and erased parts to make what I want. So it's definitely doable for erasing. You just may not get it to be as white like the paper that it was before. Again, with the compressed charcoal, you just have to be aware of, like, then if I'm touching this and I'm touching my paper, I'm getting like fingerprints all over it. You can erase them. My eraser was dirty, but you can see not as well in some instances because I have oils on my hand. So my hands look very dry right now because I've been washing them and using plaster, but I still have oils on my hand. So whenever I'm touching the page, no matter how dry my hands are, there's oils on there, and they're gonna get on there and they're gonna really get that charcoal in. So I would highly suggest that when you smudge, which may be a change in like habit for you, you use a tissue or you use a paintbrush. It works out so much better. So you just have to be aware of that when you have your compressed charcoal and then you're touching. I would definitely, you could have an extra tissue next to you and try to get it off as much on your hands as possible so that you don't, I mean, look at my hands are still all black because, and I just wiped them off. Obviously I didn't use soap or whatever. Okay, a couple more tips that I want to talk to you guys about. If you are right-handed, I highly suggest that you start on the left hand of the paper and work your way across. And I suggest this for using it with pencil as well, but it's much worse. Your smudging is much worse with charcoal, right? Because look at it, it gets everywhere. Whereas pencil wouldn't smudge this much. So really work from the from the left to the right. And then if you're left-handed, you're working opposite. You're working from the right to the left. So whatever way you're doing it, this is what I want you to do. The other thing you can do, and I forgot to grab it, is take another piece of paper. Here, I'm gonna just take a Post-it note. Don't use a Post-it note because it's sticky. Well, if you fold it on itself, I guess then it'll be fine. Take another piece of paper and cover up what you've already done. Like if you have to do something over here and then you forget, or you look at it like you're almost done and you're like, oh my gosh, I need to do this darker or something like that. Take a piece of paper bigger than this and have your hand on it so that I can come over here and work on this, you know, without smudging anything. So have a bigger piece of paper. The other thing is you have to be aware of, and I have my hand, I don't know if you guys can tell, but it's really angled up because I don't want to get my shirt in my arm in what's down here. That's why a larger scratch piece of paper works, and any piece of paper works. But those are my two biggest hints for keeping it to not smudge everywhere, is work the opposite way from your dominant hand over to your dominant hand, and then also have a piece of paper. But this is what we're going to do for charcoal. Pretty similar to what we've done with pencil and colored pencil, making sure that we're using our tiny circles. You know, this is really awesome for those big areas that you need to be covered. I really like it to use the edge too. We didn't even talk about that, but you can get really nice lines from this just like you can with the pencil. They're just a little bit different, but that is what we're doing with charcoal. So have fun, play, have fun with this. It should be fun and not frustrating. So play.